It's been a couple months since we talked about the case of Ruby Franke, and that's because her trial has been going on for a very long time. Now, just recently, her trial has actually went to court, and she pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child neglect, and here's what they were.
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 6, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children, guilty.
The court finds that the factual basis is sufficient. All of the terms of the agreement are stipulated, including that the court obtain a pre-sentence investigation report, correct?
Correct.
There won't be any argument about whether prison is the appropriate sentence, and there's an agreement about the 4 counts running consecutive.
That is correct.
All right. The court finds then that Ms. Franke's pleas are made knowingly and voluntarily. The court therefore accepts and enters those pleas. Counsel, what about sentencing on February 20th? I think, do you and your client agree to waive time, counsel?
We do agree to waive time, Your Honor.
February 20th, I believe, is a Tuesday, 10 a.m.?
That works for us, Your Honor.
All right.
So there you have it. She pled guilty to all 4 counts of child neglect, some of them more severe than others, but she will be facing a sentence in February 20th at around 10 a.m. I do not know if it will be televised, but I will keep you guys up to date with what happens and how her sentencing goes. Now let's go into detail about every count that she was found guilty on. Now I'm going to give a shout out to this influencer that I've been following. She's the one that actually brought this case back into my mind after it's been so long, and she's been following up with Ruby Franke and her antics in her trial, actually. So I'm going to give a shout out to Julie Lewis 1975, and she goes ahead and explains every count that she was found guilty on. Out of the 6, she was only found guilty of 4, and these are the ones that she pled guilty to, which I think, honestly, I think it's a lawyer's advice, because honestly, if she's this vile, I don't think she would ever take on her ownership of all this. But for the reason that it can get worse for her if she doesn't, she probably is taking the lawyer's advice and just following orders and saying, okay, I'm guilty of 4, because it could be out of 6. So that's probably why she's taking that road instead of saying, no, I didn't do anything wrong. These children are possessed by demons, which is something that she actually does claim. But anyways, let's continue with what she was guilty of.
It worded like this: Ruby intentionally or knowingly inflicted and allowed another adult to inflict serious physical injuries upon her 9 and 11-year-old children. So it does say that she inflicted this as well. The first count of child abuse has to do with physical torture of her 12-year-old son. It says that initially she was forcing him to do physical labor for hours and days at a time. And the examples listed were doing wall sits, which is when you put your back up against a wall and squat down. It's absolute torture for anyone that has tried to do this.
And I played basketball in high school and middle school, and they made us do these. I don't know why they made us do this, but they did. So that's something we would do in training when we did basketball and baseball. So there you go. I never did this at home when I just needed to get my chores done. So this is pretty bizarre.
The other is carrying boxes of heavy books up and down stairs repeatedly. And the third example was the fact that he was being forced to work outside and do labor outside in the crazy Utah heat.
And I just want to remind you guys, this is actually the son that escaped the house of Jody Hildebrand and went to the neighbor to call the police. This is actually why this whole case is being investigated overall. He is the one that finally got authorities involved, and it sounds very severe what they were doing to him.
As you know, in Utah, temperatures can get up to over 100 degrees. This is one of the things that Jody Hildebrand's neighbor had actually told the police about, was that she would look outside and she would see the children outside in crazy hot temperatures doing gardening. It also listed that he was made to do all of this barefoot, and that he was also forced to stand outside in direct sunlight for hours and even days at a time. He was also forced to stay outside at all hours of the day and night for extended periods of time. This, of course, resulted in, as you can imagine, extremely serious sunburns. It resulted in blisters and repeated sloughing of the skin. So his skin was literally peeling off.
That is insane, and I'm going to foreshadow because that's not the only kid that claimed that this was happening to them. Investigators also found out other children were also forced to do outside labor in the heat, in the sun, and have these blisters all over themselves, so it's pretty insane. So to see your children in this situation and in this much pain is pretty diabolical.
He was denied food and water while he was doing this, and he would actually be punished if he was caught drinking water while he was outside. It went
I'm so glad this woman's going to prison for this.
on to say that if they did feed him, he was given extremely bland, boring foods like a piece of chicken and some rice, while the rest of the family had a normal meal.
That sounds like prison, and she deserves to have bland food and chicken. She needs to have the same treatment, if not worse.
He was being isolated from everyone in his life, and he was also refused any form of entertainment, which of course included electronics, but it also included books and any kind of paper.
That literally sounds like an isolation chamber, and to think that this is her own biological son that she's doing to, mind-blowing.
It also says that he apparently tried to run away previously. It was in July, and it looks like once they got him back, that is when they started restraining him. They initially tied up his wrists and his ankles, and they would tie him to weights or to Ruby as well.
I would run away too if I was him. Like, this is not the place I want to be. At 12 years old, I can understand right and wrong, and to be tied up to a radiator and weights, I do not want to be part of this family.
They also would get him to lay on his belly, and they would put his hands behind his back, handcuff his wrists, handcuff his ankles, and then tie the handcuffs together. This apparently caused excessive damage to his tissue and his muscles, and once he had open wounds, they would put some sort of homeopathic remedy on it, put duct tape over the wounds, and then put the handcuffs over the duct tape.
That is insane, and that's probably why when he escaped Jody Hildebrand's home with duct tape around his wrists and ankles, that's probably what they were doing at the time.
The document also listed 3 specific incidences that Ruby Franke has admitted to. Number 1 was that she was kicking him while wearing boots. Number 2, she said she held his head underwater. And number 3, she said she would cut off his oxygen with her hand over his mouth and nose.
Personally, I would consider that attempted murder, to cover someone's nose or hold them underwater or even kick them with boots. I don't know. I've seen people get sentenced for attempted murder for less, and this sounds like it to me.
Count number 2 is for the severe emotional harm she caused to her son. It stated that Ruby and Jody sought to indoctrinate him. They were trying to convince him that he was evil and possessed. It went on to say that he had to be willing to be obedient to avoid punishments, that his punishments were necessary for him to repent, and that they were doing all of this out of love.
And that's what she did with the rest of her children.
The next 2 counts are for what she has done to her 10-year-old daughter. The first count is for severe emotional harm, and it does look like she endured exactly what her brother had endured, other than apparently the binding and also the 3 specific incidences that I had mentioned. She had been isolated the same way. She had been forced to do physical tasks and remain outside for extended periods of time. She was also denied food and water and told that she was evil and possessed. And the final count, count 4, was that these actions caused 2 or more physical injuries to her daughter. It says that she was forced to work outside in heat, barefoot as well. And she was also forced to run on dirt roads, apparently barefoot. So she had extensive injuries to her feet repeatedly. They said that when they found her, she was extremely sunburnt. She had blisters and her skin was peeling off as well. Ruby Franke is going to be sentenced on February 20th. We don't know right now what that is going to look like, but I will definitely be updating on this case, so make sure to hit follow.
Now, after hearing this, I don't know what the sentencing is going to be like because I'm not sure in how this is treated. I'm sure this is going to be she's going to be in prison for a long time, and she definitely deserves to be in prison for a long time, or at least away from her own children. Her children are probably in a better place as of now, especially since the previous video I'd mentioned that she was trying to throw all her children under the bus and saying that they were at fault and they were the reason why she was doing this. Like, you're the adult here. Why are you blaming a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old for something you are incompetent of? If you can't take care of those kids, there are tons of other options that you can seek for, and aid for your incompetence, basically. And another crazy aspect to this is that they were all public figures, so therefore this legacy is going to live on for a long time. They're going to be either known for this, or some of them might shy away from the limelight and take a break from social media. But this is a YouTuber that decided to neglect her children on camera for millions of people to witness. Now, I'll keep you guys updated on February 20th when her trial does take place and her sentencing actually occurs. I'll keep you guys updated with any new updates. Thanks again to Julie Lewis, who brought this back into my mind after so many months. But I hope she gets justice and justice is served. Hope the kids are okay, and moving forward, hope their lives are better. Anyways, what do you guys think about Ruby Franke and her case? How long do you guys think she should be in prison for? Let me know down below. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already done so, because I'll keep you guys updated with trending topics and more pop culture. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you all in the next fresh, delicious, brand new video. Peace out, my friends.